All right, guys, today on my home garage, we will be replacing the upper control arm. And we will be replacing the upper control arm. As you can see, the bushings have diminished completely. If you take a look. So what you need to do is remove this bolt here. The bolt goes out that way. So you got to get a socket and wrench on there and ratchet it out. Then you got to remove this bolt, and nut. From here, I've sprayed them earlier on in the week. They've been soaking, so now let's see if we can get these off. So there's not a lot of room to get your ratchet back and forth, so you got to get your socket on there well. Okay, guys, I've run into a pretty big snag trying to remove the upper control arm bolt. So it looks like it shows in the manual that bolt, there's a bolt behind, nut behind there. It's supposed to be welded onto the subframe. Well, loosening this bolt for the upper control arm, it snaps. So now the nut is spinning with the bolt and there is zero access to it. There is no way to put a socket on there. The only thing you can do is lower the entire rear subframe with the everything together as one to get at that bolt to remove and replace the control arms. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lower the exhaust. On this side, I already removed the e-brake cable and I removed the ABS cable and it's hanging back here. What I'm gonna do is either loosen the upper, the two bolts on the top for the shock so that when I lower everything down, this will go with it. Everything you see here will go with it. I'll disconnect the rear drive shaft so that the subframe comes down with it. And as for the caliper, what I'm gonna do is remove the caliper, just the caliper, and hang it up here, not putting no tension on the cable. And I'm gonna do that on both sides, and I'm gonna show you doing that. And that is, I think, the only way to remove this upper control arm without killing yourself. I've tried for 2 hours. It's not possible. As soon as the tacks on that nut on the rear of the subframe snapped and started spinning together, there's just no way to get a socket in there. There's no way to get a wrench on either side. So let's get at it. Step one, we're going to attempt to remove the ABS sensor. Make sure it doesn't break. So there it is right there. It's a 5mm Allen. So just go easy with it. Okay, didn't break. Good step. Sockets out, bolts out, sorry. The next step is you want to hit it with a hammer lightly, just to loosen off any rust. So I grab a small hammer like so, and I'm going to make contact just about here, just to get it to move slightly, just to make sure that it's not seized. So just get my hammer. Okay, it's moving. Take a look. It's moved a bit, so we know we're okay. So as you can see, you can just slightly get a screwdriver in there, and we just start lifting it. You guys can see that? Just start lifting it really slowly. You do not want to put too much tension here. These probably have never come out. So then step two is I have this little pry bar here. It's just a trim tool, and I put in here, and I put tension on the back. So I keep my hand on the back of it as I pull up. And as you can see, like, it's coming up pretty nicely. And all that white is like grease because it is rubber coated, which is good. So there we go, it's out. So that wasn't too bad. So that's out. So the next step is, I don't know if anyone could see, but there is right there, that's a 10mm bolt that holds the harness clamp. There's a harness clamp that goes around like this. from back here. So I'll show you. We'll loosen off that 10 mil. Once you loosen it, it'll come out by hand. Okay. Okay, you see right here, this is the harness. So what all you're gonna do, push up on this, and this will pull up there. You see this whole thing is loose now. So we can now remove it, and we're gonna get it out of the way, because we know we need the space when the subframe comes down. So we're gonna tie it up to the e-brake cable, which is the next thing that's going to come out. Okay, so there's one. So the next step, removing this e-brake cable. So all you're going to do is pry this clip back and forth like this. It should not be seized since we just put a new one in. That's it. Once that's out, it should be easy to remove the e-brake cable by just pushing down on the caliper. That's it. Slide it down and under. And I already removed the 3 bolts that hold a bracket onto the control arm. So now we're going to put these 2 cables back. So what I'm going to do is, because I want to protect the ABS sensors, I'm going to wrap this rag around it and tie it. And I'm going to tie it back out of the way. The next step is removing the two bolts that hold the splash shield, the inner splash shield out, to give us better access to the shock absorber at the top, so we can lower it all down together. We're just gonna move this slightly out of the way. It's a 13 millimeter to remove. Only thing left now is the caliper, and then hanging it. Hold it. As you can see, I loosened up. This is the camber adjuster bolt. It seems like the rubber is seized inside. So worst case, we may need to cut it out and then order a new bolt, which is not a big deal at all. So we're gonna try and air hammer it once it's on the ground, or in the day when I can make more noise, try to air hammer it back and forth to see if it moves. But for now, let's just hang our caliper. The cable, that's what you want. So, all right, guys. So as you know, the lower control arm bolt that's welded to the subframe, the weld snapped, so I was unable to remove the upper control arm bolt on the rear passenger side, so we have to drop the subframe to access the bolt. There's no other way. So to do that, you need to remove the exhaust. So I've been working at getting the the downpipe bolts out, so now they're out. We have a hanger here, so we'll remove this hanger and these bolts from here, and then if we come along here, we'll have to remove this support beam. And if we continue down, there's 2 more hangers there. We'll probably just unbolt them from there. So probably easier. And as we move a little bit more back, what do we got? We got another hanger there. So we'll probably just unbolt the entire hanger from both sides, and then this thing should be ready to drop down. So once the exhaust is out, once the exhaust is removed, I will confirm that there's nothing else holding this rear subframe in place, no wires, no cables, no other bolts. Then we'll disconnect the rear drive shaft at the differential. We'll disconnect, as you can see, the differential is actually connected to the subframe. So this will all come out as one piece. The tank is strapped in, it doesn't come with it. So all this will come down. We'll just disconnect the drive shaft here. After we remove the exhaust, we'll have better access. We'll disconnect this, and then this whole thing will come down as one unit so that we can access the control arm bolts. Unbelievable. Anyways, let's get to it. This is more of real world. In the, fantasy YouTube world, where both those upper control arm bolts just come out, easy job, probably done 5 minutes, both sides, getting alignment done. But in the real world where things are seized, this is more of what you're gonna have to expect. So if this is something you're attempting at home, you may want to check those bolts first, because if they snap, you'll be driving to a shop to get the work done. In hindsight, maybe I should have removed this. Okay, and there we are. These 2 bolts. Trick to take these hangers off is lubricate them and a pry bar. Look like. Once you maneuver that exhaust out, take a breath because it was heavy. And now you're going to, okay guys, the next piece of the puzzle is removing the drive shaft, lowering it down at least. It's on the hanger anyways. Okay. So the line. Before we let the drive shaft fall, we will hang it. Okay, after further investigation, we do need to remove the center carrier to have enough room to drop it on this side, or else it won't come out. So we're gonna have to remove this heat shield and whatever else is in the way. Plastic tabs. Information right there. That shield is what holds the carrier bearing in place. Great. Okay, there it is. Okay, it's disconnected. Nice. It's a lot better. Okay, so now it is ready to come down. So I'm gonna clear everything out of the way. And let's see what it gives. Alright, so what we're going to do is support this in the best possible way. So my idea is, you guys can take a look at what I'm going to do here. I mean, this job could apply to anyone replacing subframe bushings, all kinds of different things. So I guess it is a useful video in that respect. So I'm going to have 2 of them here, because I feel like that's the best, most supportive area. And then the other 2 will be behind it. And they will be up here on this lower portion. So get it better lined up once. And the difference between this and this is pretty close, so I don't even know if we'll need to do any real adjustments. And once we loosen the bolts for the subframe, we're going to need to support the front end of the vehicle because there is a lot of weight coming off the back. So I will have these in the front to support that any load transfer that occurs. So I'll put this on this front subframe and it'll take up the load. So let's get to do that. You guys can see pretty well what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line these all up carefully. Okay. Okay, so now I can remove the subframe bolts. So I have loosened them already. So now it's just a matter of actually removing them. Here's one. You just gotta, the bolt is right underneath here. So we're just gonna remove this. Alright guys, so now we're gonna raise the subframe off the car. Remember, the springs are loaded, now they're unloaded. So now the springs are not connected to anything. So now we're gonna get our light and make sure that there is nothing being held in place still. Okay, something I just noticed, and it's a good thing we check, is The wheel speed sensors have a bracket that's connected to the subframe. I just want to take a look at that. It's right there. See, we gotta just push that out. And we're gonna keep looking because there may be more things that are connected that we haven't seen. So I'm gonna push this out. Okay, there's one. To the other side. Here's our culprit. This is why we're here. This bolt right here, it untacked. So now I gotta figure out a way to hold it, hoist it safely on the locks. So I think this should be sufficient space to do any repairs that we need to do. And yeah, let's see if we can get that bolt out. Step 1, spray it. Step 2, that was fun. All that work to remove this arm, which is completely perished. The bushing spins inside. So this bolt is strange. It sits in here and then I guess it's not supposed to spin. I don't know if it's supposed to be welded on or not. It doesn't look like it's welded. Either way, we'll tighten it up. So let's get our new one. This is the right side. It has an R on it. I'm using Delphi control arms. What we're gonna do is, first thing is we're gonna clean all these bolts up. These bolts are all gonna get a lot of anti-seize. Just in case I have to access them. I do not want to have the same problem again. I want to be able to do this without this complication that I just had. So, here we go. This bolt. So, this orientation is this slotted part goes in. I'm not sure if they're supposed to be tacked on. I have no idea. It's a very strange setup, so to speak. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the bolt. Okay. Alright, so there it is. And now we're going to attach it here. That bolt to line up. There. And this gets a washer on the other side. I'm going to tidy up the washer. Alright guys, so on the driver's side, the bolt is seized in here. As you can see, I cut out the control arm. So we have the same problem over here. The nut, spins. So I'm going to have to tighten it on the car because I don't see how I can get a screwdriver or anything in here to do it. But that's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is now I've cut the control arm out. So I use the cutter. And once I cut one side, I just pull the control arm up and cut the other side. And here is this metal sleeve. So what happens with these cars is the metal sleeve seizes onto the bolt and it won't spin. So right now you have the sleeve spinning with the bolt and the bushing separated. So what I'm going to do is cut notches into this and hopefully that loosens up the rust and I can remove and salvage this bolt. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay guys, the bolt is finally out of the sleeve. Where's the sleeve? Where did you roll to? There. So it's hot. So what I did is I just cut notches into it. And then I used a hammer and a punch like this. And I just kept hitting the sleeve back and forth. and I left the nut on the end of the bolt, and I hammered on that, and eventually it loosened up from all the cuts that I made, just gave it enough, like, I guess, expansion to come out. So yeah, there's a little damage there, but it's out. So now we can start putting the new one back in, and as you can see, it is a mess. Like, there is a lot of... So I'm gonna clean myself up, get a drink of water, and start back up. All right, guys, so what I've realized in reassembling now is you can put the ABS sensor back on, because I personally haven't lowered the subframe enough to stretch out the cable. So I've reconnected the harness and put the speed sensor back in, tightened it down. Now I'm going to torque the upper arm. It's 62 foot-pounds plus 90 degrees. So I'm going to torque that now. Okay. 62. So of course we got to hold this side. I don't think I can get to this. 62 foot-pounds plus 90 degrees. That's it, 62. Okay, so plus 90 degrees, so we'll do 1, 2, and there's 90. So, same thing with the eccentric bolt. Obviously it's gonna go to an alignment shop, and they're gonna obviously take this apart. So this is kind of pointless. This is just, let's assume you're putting it in the same position it was. The alignment shop won't even torque this, they'll run it, so worth is alive. Okay, click. It is also plus 90 degrees. So what I'll do is, demonstration purposes, it doesn't need to be perfect at 90 degrees. It can be, like, to 90 will be here, so. There, 90 degrees. So now this side's done. Okay, this is all tightened. Now we're ready to go back up on this side. Obviously we'll do it very slowly. And we have our cable here. So we'll keep our cable behind. The e-brake cable, that is. Okay, another thing we need to do is place the rear stabilizer links while we're here. 16mm wrench. Okay, and then the links are actually 2 bolts from underneath the control arm. It's 13. So we get our gun. So there's our link. And I don't know if you guys are able to see this, but it has play back and forth inside this ball socket. Okay, it shouldn't have play back and forth. If you see the new one, it has absolutely no play. Here's one, placed again. Okay. Okay, everything's tight, so that's tight. I even undercoated the subframe. I figure when else am I ever going to be in here? I kind of wish I replaced the subframe bushings, but it's not a big deal. So here's your routing for your ABS sensor. I cleaned out the hole, lubricated everything. Cable routing, as you can see, there's still lots of play. You know, undercoated a bunch of stuff. So this side's done. I'm going to do the other side, and then we'll get everything up. Obviously, before we get everything up, we will position the springs in place. Springs will go in place, and as we raise it, we'll adjust them. There's no point in putting them now, they'll just fall out. So I'm going to do that now, and then I'll be right back. All right, guys, now we're going to try to reconnect the subframe to the car. Let's see how much it's moved. So hopefully this is all buckled in. Here's a look. Everything's buttoned up. I will torque those subframe bolts. Then we'll get everything reattached and see what happens. Alright guys, so now that the subframe bolts are in, we will torque them after we get some of this stuff back together. And as you can see, the shims have come out. You know, we got a bunch of metal debris everywhere. Okay, so we're going to tighten the subframe bolts, 110 foot-pounds plus 90 degrees. It says you're supposed to replace them, but I ain't replacing them. And I'll just do a little bit. See? Alright, subframe's torqued. Next step after the subframe is putting all the pieces back on this side. So. Alright. Woo! This whole section is back together. Now we gotta do the drive shaft. Alright guys, we're back. For you it's right now, for me it's a few days later. Been waiting for parts for this. Primarily this seal here, which is completely perished. So it looks like it's been changed to a cork gasket. What I'm going to do is stick the cork gasket on the inside. I'm going to clean up the whole area. We don't want to have any grease get on this. Okay? Okay. So we're going to put the gasket inside, and as you can see, it fits perfectly inside that little ridge. There's a little ridge there. Okay, so it sits on the inside of the ridge, and it's a sticky gasket, or whatever it's called. Okay, so there it is. And now I've lowered the actual center carrier. It's lowered you guys can take a look at that. It's lowered and I have it supported. So you could easily do that on the ground. And the reason for that is so that I have room to get the shaft on safely without damaging the actual, without damaging the new gasket. Shit. So now, we're gonna maneuver the shaft so that it doesn't hit anything. We're gonna push it back in and lower it just enough to get it up here. Okay, so once it's here, we can now kind of slide it in and get our first set of bolts in there. And we do not want to damage that gasket. Okay, the next step is alright guys, so to torque it, I'm using an extension. It is 30 foot-pounds. So as I torque 1, 2, okay. Alright, so that's how you reinstall the drive shaft. And the next step is the exhaust.